So then, ladies and gents, let's get into it then. We have this circuit here at Brazil, the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, the circuit Interlagos between the lakes. The anti-clockwise 15-turn circuit has two DRS zones, one down the start-finish straight and one on the straight after the Senna S, the first three corners there. The fast first and third sectors have a challenging technical middle sector to give a nice balance over the course of the lap here. Plenty of elevation change on this historic circuit as we start to see the cars peeling out to the pit lane at the start of their qualifying session. With the order as it stands then, we've seen a bit of movement. We've now got Morwood in the top three in the Haas with a 107.296. So it is starting to come towards the top end of the field here in terms of the times. And if we have a look further down, we have Ole Olaf in the McLaren at 107.3. So just 4 thousandths behind Morwood. So that's going to be a close bearing, one that we should keep an eye on for the rest of this virtual weekend. Then we've got Timilele, we have Booth, Rage, Charlie Gibbles, Dolphy, Luke, Mark Hopkins, Shamblizi, False 12, Donald, It's Hammer Time, and Erbil. Taking pole position for this race at Interlagos, it is Hugh Sam 22 with a 106.657, improving by a couple of tenths there at the end of the session. Then on P2 will be Timilele in the Mercedes, the Division 3 reigning champion, certainly making their mark in Div 2 so far. Dog will then line up on third position with a 107.1, and then alongside them Morwood, someone who is very popular in the chat, I can see. Awful lot of shout outs for them. Ole Olaf in 5th place, Booth in 6th, Mark Hopkins 7th, Donald in 8th, and then Dolphy in 9th, Luke in 10th, Rage in 11th, False 12 in 12th, Charlie Chibbles in 13th, Shamblizi in 14th, It's Hammer Time in 15th, and then rounding out the grid is Erbil in 16th. As these cars are starting to line up, then we have just a quick repeat and a reminder of your race order before we get underway. We have Hugh Sam, then Timilele, Dog, Morwood, Ole Olaf, Booth, Mark Hopkins, Donald, Dolphy, Luke, Rage, False 12, Charlie Chibbles, Shamblizi, It's Hammer Time, and Erbil. And it's 4 or 5 red lights. Lights out, and away we go. It's a good start from the Williams driver of Hugh Sam. They're making a good move down into turn 1, and the Mercedes just behind having to defend into turn 1, and around the outside goes the Racing Point. There's been a big incident further back in the field, and a lot of cars off track there. We've got a few cars ghosting as well. We'll have to keep an eye on this as the situation develops. We've got Hugh Sam currently out in the lead, with then the Racing Point of Dog following along behind, with Timilele then in 3rd position. With the Renault then of Donald just behind, Mark Hopkins following through, then Dolphy, Erbil making a fantastic getaway off of the start, and then Luke, Ole Olaf, and Rage just behind them, finishing out the top 10. So
fuck!
We've got some movement further down as well. We've got Morwood in the pits, and then It's Hammer Time as well. Hammer Time coming out ahead of Morwood from that pit stop, and Booth is also into the pits. Hasn't been able to stop in the Haas box just yet, and I'm just staying on board with them briefly. The Haas team just waiting to get everything sorted out again and ready to go, because of course they've just received Morwood, so there's a bit of a delay. They're stuck in the pit box, and then they finally start getting to work. Pulling alongside the Renault now, going down towards turn 4, the scene at Interlagos, and then it's a safety car. Safety car has been called as It's Hammer Time is out of the session. They've had an incident at Junsao that I can see, and I'll have a look through to, I think one of the Haas cars is starting to approach them now, so I will keep an eye on that as they make their way around. Hopefully the car is still there. We can see whether or not that was a crash, or whether that was maybe just the driver pulling up to one side.
We will see who are the big winners and losers as far as position changes. Obviously, Morwood and Booth, the two Haas's coming together in that opening lap and having to make an early pit stop down big. 9 and 10 positions respectively there, but this is a really good opportunity for Morwood and Booth, who dropped but stayed on the lead lap, luckily. So they have an opportunity to really make it work going forward now that the field is going to be all bunched up. They are on the hard compounded tire, which after that first lap pit may not quite get them all the way to the end. So we may see them have an opportunity to go onto a fresh set of soft tires at the very end of the race and be absolutely rapid. But I would guess that most of the drivers out there on those soft compounds are going to be looking to go to lap 15 or 16 and put on some mediums and go to the end.
we are back to it then. We are back in this race. Safety car just circulating at the moment then. So, Grimbliss, you've taken the question away from me before I can even ask it to you. And that is what is being discussed in the chat at the moment. And that is, of course, all to do with whether those hard tyres will get to the end or not. Do you think it's going to be a question that they will definitely need to preserve them? Or is it going to be a case that, that they can drive them reasonably well and try and get some performance out of them?
To get to the end on the hard tires, I think at this stage you'll definitely have to preserve them. You're not going to be able to push, and I think it's a pretty big stretch to get them all the way to the end. So, if I was in this situation, I would stayed with the majority of the field and stayed out on the starting set of tires. Interesting to see only a couple of drivers from outside the top 10 opted for the medium strategy. We saw a decent amount of that in the Division 1 race, running that reverse strategy, essentially running mediums and then onto softs. And we only saw a few instances of the hard, and they definitely were a bit of a struggle to get around. Now, track temperatures were a little lower in that PC Division 1 race, so they were able to keep the tires in window a little better. And it may be an instance where running that soft to medium, you're still going to struggle with overheating, and we may see some drivers opt for the hards instead to try and keep those tire temperatures down and keep that pace up.
And the safety car is in rather at the end of this lap. So it will be the end of this lap then. So Hugh Sam getting ready to lead the field away, just backing everybody up, letting that safety car bolt away. And then the Timalele car has disappeared. Timalele has bolted and he's gone into the pits, according to my screen. No, he's braked, he's waited, and now he's allowed all the cars by again. So clearly some sort of rejoining error for him, but away we go. And Hugh Sam has been able to maintain his lead. We've got some confusion, and the Renault goes off the circuit along with the McLaren, and that is Donald off the circuit with Ole Olaf, and they've dropped massively down the order. Mark Hopkins gets a 5-second time penalty for ignoring yellow flags. So we've got all sorts of cars going off the circuit. We have Showley Chibbles going off, and also Dolphy. Those two involved in an incident with one another, and Dolphy just hitting the barrier a second time. The car just completely undrivable for them at this stage. Couple of laps. So we've got to keep an eye on these time deltas. If we have the situation that's developing at the front right now where Hugh Sam is getting away, getting outside 1 second, that means that as the Haas goes up the inside of the McLaren of Ole Olaf there, Morwood making an attempt at the move. He's alongside. It's now going to be a drag race up the hill. He's got the overtake enabled as well, so he's been able to blast by the McLaren, who's just lifted off and allowed everybody to go by. So along they go then. Morwood has run out of deployment for that lap, but he's just gone across the start-finish line, so he's been able to re-enable his ERS once more there. So he's backed up then by Donald, who's right up behind the Haas driver. Again, though, no DRS down this start-finish straight. It's all going to be about the use of their electrical deployment or their fuel modes and that sort of thing, as we watch the McLaren getting the new front wing there. Morwood's just defending that position nicely into turn 4 as well, not giving any opportunity for Donald to get by there. As we see Charlie Chibbles making their way past the Red Bull of Dolphy in the pits. Dolphy only just now getting released from their box. So unfortunate incidents on that restart there, but things seem to have calmed down now, and we are racing again. So your running order at the moment is the podium positions. We have Hugh Sam in the lead, followed by Dog, as it has been for much of this race. Then we have Mark Hopkins in third, taking that position from Timalele after the strange way in which they rejoined the session and had to slow down and allow everybody back by. Then we have Luke in fourth, and then Rage, Timalele, Shamblizi, False, Erbil, Morwood, Donald, Booth, Ole Olaf, Charlie Chibbles, and Dolphy rounding out the pack with, of course, It's Hammer Time out of this session after an incident at the final corner at Junsao. We're now just watching this battle then between, who is that? That is Shamblizi, Donald, and Booth all together then. And Morwood, 3-second time penalty with multiple warnings. So, of course, we race strict corner cutting in the FRS. In PC's Division 1 and 2, and of course they will just overstep the mark in searching for that extra bit of time, but they've had a very good recovery. Of course, they were back down near the bottom of the grid after the first few laps and those first few exchanges, now up to P6 for the Haas driver, albeit there will be some pit stops still to shape out here and rejig the order slightly, but seems to be a good recovery so far from the Haas driver. And we see a couple of hashtag Go Morwoods in chat. So he's certainly got a good fan base so far. And this is just his first race as well. Fantastic. So as it stands then, briefly delayed, Hugh Sam will now be able to get a march on and get moving up after the rest of the order, hopefully being able to get themselves back up to the lead as far as they're concerned. We've then got, of course, Rage out in the lead at the moment on those medium tyres they started the race on. So we'll have to wait and see how they are able to effect a lead from the charging pack behind, as we see the Haas driver of Moorwood there, hashtag go Moorwood as they're saying in the chat, chasing after False 12. False on those 17-lap-old mediums, and Moorwood on those 14-lap-old hards. So not only are those tyres younger, but they're also able to just take a bit more punishment, give them a bit more performance at this later stage of the race, or this middle stage of the race, in fact, as we are approaching, if not already beyond the halfway point. So then, with most of the pit stops completed for now, and likely we're going to see Rage and False 12 fall back down the order once they've made their stops, we can say that your provisional race leader for now would be Moorwood, followed by Boof, Hugh Sam, Dog, Timalele, Luke, Mark Hopkins, Donald, Shambleezy, Charlie Chibbles, Dolphy, and then Ole Olaf, rounding out the order of cars still running. Of course, as I say, Rage and False 12 currently in P1 and P2, but after they make their stops, they will not continue to be there, and then it will depend entirely on Moorwood and Boof, the two hard tyre runners at the front of the field at the moment, how they're able to preserve those tyres, and whether or not they will need to make another stop, whether they'll be overtaken on track or through that pit stop phase there. So we're just having a look then in terms of the battles on circuit at the moment. It is still Moorwood, the closest to anybody on circuit right now. The Haas driver chasing after the Alfa Romeo of False 12. And Quimbulus, you know, you in this position where you've got these younger, harder tyres chasing after a car with older, softer tyres. We see the lockup there for both cars heading into the second sector. What would you be thinking if you were both the attacker and defender in this scenario?
Well, if you're the defender out in front, you know you've only got to go a few more laps longer before you hit your pit when there's a big amount of oversteer coming on the power there with those tires wearing out. But really, if the car behind you is going to get behind, I'm not going to defend too hard and cost myself time. We're on slightly different strategies, so I'm not going to compromise my own race positioning because of it. Now, for Moorwood behind, is he going to try and get those hard tires to the end, or is he going to bolt on some softs late in the stages? He's pulling out to the inside with the DRS assistance into turn one there. He's down fully alongside, a little bit of a puff of smoke. It looks like he's gotten that job completely done, and False 12 really didn't fight it that hard, just stayed on the racing line and kind of let it happen. However, he's going to be close enough to make a second attack. He's in the slipstream with the DRS, but just hitting the braking zone for turn 4, not quite there. So it may be a situation where False 12 was looking to hold that position until he got past, and then we might see him come into the pit lane in the next couple of laps. But as I was saying with Moorwood, it's really just a matter of how he wants to drive to try and preserve those tires. If he's going to try and get those hards to the end, he's had them on since lap 3. So trying to do 33 laps on a set of tires is quite a stretch.
It seems as though Moorwood has been able to establish about a second or so in terms of a gap to False 12 behind, so it's unlikely that they'll have the DRS. They may well have the DRS, in fact, though, down this start-finish straight. They do. They also have 41% of their ERS available, whereas Moorwood only has 6%. That's now gone up as they've gone through the braking zone there and recharged some of their battery. So then, Moorwood is starting to gallop away from False 12 then. That gap now up to about 1.5 seconds. Boof is then just behind in the other Haas car, about half a second back, and then similarly another half second back to Hugh Sam, the former race leader who is looking to get back on top, I would imagine, and has that massive tyre advantage as well. Boof has 18-lap-old hard tyres versus Hugh Sam's 3-lap-old mediums. It's all about getting to the end at this stage for Hugh Sam and making sure that they get past the Haas cars on the way as carefully as possible. Because, of course, an incident would likely ruin not just their race, but also the races of the Haas drivers in front as well, who, to be honest, they have gambled with that lap 5 safety car. Gone onto the hard tyres, thought, right, we'll get either to the end or very close to the end and gain an awful lot of positions on the way. And it certainly seems to be working so far, doesn't it, Quimulus?
Yeah, so far it's put them in a pretty good track position around a track that only has a couple of real good overtaking zones. So we'll see how that comes good for them at the end of the race. They're just going to kind of have to either limp them around, or if they were to come in and pit now, they would still be inside the top 10. So they may be looking to grab some soft tires and go for a fastest lap at the end of the race.
And still a very valiant effort from them. They've got Dog chasing behind, but 3 seconds still needs to be made up by the Racing Point driver, and then, of course, an overtake needs to happen too. But Hugh Sam now has about 2 seconds that they need to make up to Moorwood, so I'd imagine that that's unlikely to happen over the course of just this lap. We will wait and see as to how that battle develops, as we now see Hugh Sam is now only half a second behind Moorwood. So then, all those in the chat who like seeing Moorwood up in front and in the lead. I feel as though you're going to be disappointed as we see the DRS opening now on the Williams, and to the inside they go, and up the inside into the center S. Morewood doesn't really fight it too much. A bit of a lock up into that first turn, and then the move done there. So we'll then see, will there be any fight back on this second straight? It looks like there may not be. The DRS is open for the Haskar, but I think they're just a little bit too far back to be able to make a move. And yes, into the braking zone they go, and no swapping of positions there. So Hugh Sam retakes the lead on lap 25 of the Brazilian Grand Prix from Morewood, who was as far down as 14th position near the start of this race. And if you'd predicted that they'd been able to make their way back up, then I salute you very much so. A bit further down the order, Booth has pitted for new soft tyres. They've decided that they're not going to be able to take the hards to the end of this race, and that means that Dog has now regained a podium position. It's not quite P2 that they were in earlier on, but P2 is now only 4 seconds up the road, and they have a short number of laps, about 10, 11 laps to be able to catch them up and effect an overtake again on those much younger, softer tyres as well. So there'll be an interesting battle to watch there as the race unfolds.
Now, one thing I did notice was Booth come in for that extra set of soft tires, getting off those hards might be an indication we may see Morewood try that, or they're just trying to split the strategy and maximize the points. So we'll see what they're thinking in that regard.
Back by, and then we just see again, here's the Haas going by false 12 on the start-finish straight. That was Morewood making the move for the lead, and then we have a look here as Hugh Sam also then made the move on Morewood this time, going into the center S and just taking the lead of this race. So we've had some good action so far in this race, some more to come I'm sure, as we've got still another 7 laps to go in this Brazilian Grand Prix. Just to give you a bit of an update in terms of some of the positioning, we've now got Dog right behind Morewood. So Morewood has been cruising along just outside of a second ahead for a number of laps now, but now Dog has gotten his foot down and been able to close up and just get himself into a position where he might be able to effect a move here. The gap is about 0.4 of a second as they head onto the second DRS straight. They've got about 30% of their ERS available, and Morewood has an awful lot more though, so they have a brilliant amount of backup to be able to use to defend with. They've got about 80% versus Dog's 30% currently. So while the DRS will certainly be helping, that use of the ERS is going to be one which is going to be crucial in the factors later on in this race. Just having a look at the poll then in the Twitch chat, and feel free to vote on it if you are liking the race so far. But we're looking at your driver of the day, and currently there is a substantial lead for Rage, 8 votes so far, with 47% of the vote share rather, with then Timalele with 2 votes, Dog with 4, Morewood with 3, and Hugh Sam, the current leader of the race, not getting any votes at all. Any votes at all? Who would have thought it? Right then, so as we have a look at this battle then, as it continues to pan out, we're just seeing as I go on board with Dog now, he's got the DRS open, he's closing, he's looking to the inside, he makes the move up the inside, into the center S, into turn 1, but around the outside, Morewood is able to hang it, he then slows up in the second corner, just kills all the momentum that Dog had built up there through the better exit line, and then down that second DRS straight. He gets the DRS open once again, does Dog, but he's not close enough to be able to make the move stick. And that was some brilliant defensive driving from Morewood there. I think a couple more votes need to go to him as driver of the day, really, with driving like that. If he's able to maintain this position all the way to the end of the race, he'll certainly be getting my driver of the day, I tell you. So, as we continue then on this battle, I'll give you a bit of an update as to what is happening elsewhere as well. We've just seen Charlie Chibbles get himself by the Red Bull of Dolphy, because Dolphy has gone into the pit, going onto a new set of, or a scrub set rather, of soft tyres. Or at least they certainly look scrubbed from what I'm seeing there. No, the graphic has just changed and they're now a brand new fresh set of tyres. So Dolphy then just leaving the pits now, and Ole Olaf has just overtaken them as well by being out on circuit. In terms of other close battles, we don't have any other battles that are under a second. So Dog now making that move to the inside. Will they be able to get up the inside into turn 1? They make the move again. And once again, around the outside, Morewood is just able to hold it. He's then able to just slow up nicely on that second corner there, but this time, Dog seems a bit more aware of the trick. He's been able to just lift off of the throttle ever so slightly. That means he's much closer on this second DRS straight. He goes to the inside, does Morewood to defend the corner, and he's able to just stay there. Oh, and round the outside, Dog goes. A brilliant bit of driving, a brilliant bit of dueling between the two of them there. I can't help but feel as though Morewood may have been able to use a bit more ERS. He's still got a good 20% more than what Dog has currently in their charge, but it seems as though that is likely going to be the end of this particular battle, as with 28-lap-old hard tyres, it's unlikely that Morwood's going to really be able to mount a challenge back on Dog on those 15-lap-old medium tyres. So now, Morwood really needs to be wary of Timalele behind. The Division 3 champion, as we've been saying, is a driver who certainly knows what he's doing in a fight and in terms of getting the outright pace from the car. And the Mercedes driver will now be closing up just about a second or so. May well have been able to get inside his seconds for that DRS detection zone. We will find out in just a moment's time. Yes, the DRS is open on the Mercedes. So he's not going to be close enough to make a move on Morwood just yet. But maybe on the second DRS straight, if there's good things happening for him in the Senna S and bad things happening for Morwood, then we may see a move into that particular part of the circuit. But I would wager we're going to have a look at this battle in about 1 lap's time, unless they're able to mount a fantastic amount of pace there. And Timalele just up the inside into turn 1 there, and a fantastic move up the inside of Morwood there, and the Division 3 champion just eating him up there. I think that too much of Morwood's tyres have been used in trying to defend P2 from Dog, and now he's just very easily fallen back behind Timalele there, not really able to mount a re-overtaking challenge. And there we go, he's lost his podium. But you never know, anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does. So we may see something happen towards the end of this race, perhaps an unforced error or a coming together between P2 and P3 possibly. As to whether or not that's something we can do, we can keep an eye on this battle with Rage now right up behind Morwood, having been able to make a really, really good attempt so far after getting that second pit stop out the way. And now with 10-lap-old softs versus 30-lap-old hard tyres, opens the DRS to the outside. He goes down the start-finish straight. He's not got very much ERS remaining, but breaking into turn 1, he goes round the outside. He does the reverse of what Morwood did earlier on in his defense of P2, and there the position is made.
So getting past Morwood quickly and effectively was really important for Rage there to not get held up over these last few laps, and now he may be able to take a podium without getting it on track, but I think he's going to want to get it on track as well.
And now as Hugh Sams comes down the grid and across the start-finish line, it is P1 for Hugh Sam. 22, the Williams driver, winning the Brazilian Grand Prix provisionally, unless we see any shakeouts there in terms of the results. And Rage goes P2. Rage goes P2 after time penalties for Morwood, Dog, and Timalele there. So Timalele falling drastically down the order. P7 is where he is finished. Morwood making it back up into P4, and Dog managing just to hold on to P2, to a podium position there rather, as they come to the end of the race. And that is your order then. So we have Hugh Sam, the winner of this race, Rage in P2, and then Dog in P3. Morwood is coming home in a respectable P4, as Dolphy just crashes into the wall as they approach the start-finish line, and they stop on the grid with one corner missing from their wagon. So end of the race there. Driver of the day is Rage, according to the game, and according to you folks at home voting in the Twitch chat, it is also Rage. What a fantastic effort from him there to be able to go ahead and get that all sorted. And as we can see here, podium celebrations. Hugh Sam takes the initial win for Division 2 on the PC, and alongside him, some very worthy drivers who will be able to challenge him all the way to the end, I'm sure.
Well, it was a great race. I mean, early on, the early safety cars and the early start definitely looked a little bit shaky. Drivers getting their feet kind of settled, but the side-by-side action towards the tail end of the race, especially all the battles that Morwood was in with those extremely worn hard tires, really made it work and really brought it home well to stretch those hard tires that long.